till I can't no more.
I got the horses in the bag. Horse stock is a tag.
Hi everyone and welcome to Protocol 36. In today's video we'll be talking about somebody who's extremely important to Peter Parker's life, and that is Uncle Ben. Now Uncle Ben hasn't been discussed all that much in the MCU, but when it comes to Spider-Man 3, that could possibly change. Now bear in mind this is just a theory and nothing has been confirmed just yet, especially when it comes to Uncle Ben. But judging from these set photos which have been recently leaked online, and in those set photos we have pictures of a bakery store named Peter Pan Donuts and Pastries. Now apparently that is a real pastry store in Atlanta, but thanks to other set photos which came later on, we know that MJ will be working there in the film. But also thanks to the display and redecoration, we know that the film will take place around the Christmas period, which is great since a lot of people have been wanting that for a live action Spider-Man film. We had a Spider-Man movie that takes place during the winter in Into the Spider-Verse, but finally we're going to get a live action Spider-Man film that takes place during the Christmas period. Now, why is that important? Well, in Captain America Civil War, we know that film takes place around 2016, possibly around April or May, at least according to Geekritique, which is a channel run by great content creators called Jen and Dakota, who makes a lot of amazing content such as MCU timeline videos, explaining when each film and TV show takes place in the MCU. Link will be in the description. And in one of their videos they explained that Civil War could take place around April 2016, which I'm willing to believe. And we know that in this film, Peter Parker has been Spider-Man for around 6 months. So assuming that Peter Parker was kind of rounding up his time as Spider-Man, that would kind of mean that Uncle Ben probably died around November, December, assuming that Peter Parker was rounding up, of course. Now if that happens, that means that Spider-Man 3 will most likely take place around the anniversary of Uncle Ben's death, which is pretty insane if you think about it. Now some people, including myself, kind of think that Uncle Ben probably died around Christmas Day, which if that happens in the MCU, that would be pretty dark since Christmas would be the time to spend time with family, give presents, spreading happiness and joy. But since during that festive day, what about if Uncle Ben died and it was Peter Parker's fault? So not only does Peter Parker have to be on the run, but as usual, probably now more than ever, he's thinking about Uncle Ben, since that would make a lot of sense and would be tragic. And I really do hope that they go into that route when it comes to Uncle Ben. As John Watts did say that they're trying to find the right time and place to bring Uncle Ben into the MCU, whether that be a mention or a flashback, since he's very important to Peter Parker. And Kevin Feige did also say that Spider-Man 3 will be Peter Parker's most personal film yet, and you definitely can't get any more personal than Uncle Ben when it comes to Peter Parker. After all, Peter was indirectly responsible for Ben's death, as he had the opportunity to avoid his death by catching the thief, but since Peter Parker during that period was very selfish when it came to his powers and didn't really feel like helping, which led to Ben's death. And in the MCU, Peter Parker pretty much went through a similar situation when he says to Tony Stark that when you can do the things that I can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen, they happen because of you. Clearly giving a small abbreviation of his origin story. Also a long version of with great power, there must also come great responsibility. I think if we're going to get a flashback of Uncle Ben, they're definitely going to mention him, since you can't really do a flashback without mentioning Ben in one form or another. But I think something better could happen. And I've also said this in one of my videos talking about what Doctor Strange's role might be in MCU Spider-Man 3, so if you want to check that out, link will be in the card in the right hand corner, where I pretty much discussed that Doctor Strange would temporarily bring back Uncle Ben for Peter Parker to talk to for about a few minutes, which would be not only an awesome moment but very heartfelt and very earned. Everyone has been wondering about Uncle Ben in the MCU, and as we know, he's already dead, and if they were going to do a flashback, I don't think it would be a flashback to when he died, but probably a flashback back when Peter Parker was much younger, way before the Spider Bite, to pretty much show that how much of an impact Uncle Ben did have to this version of Spider-Man. And according to some people's theories, we might get that since we saw Tom Holland's brother, Harry Holland, on set for Spider-Man 3, where a lot of people think that he might play a younger Peter Parker. Personally, I don't think so, but I definitely won't rule that out, since anything is possible at the end of the day. I just think that Harry Holland could just be a cameo for us fans to just be like, oh hey, that's Tom Holland's brother in the movie. So that's what I think at least. But at the end of the day, I could be wrong. I wouldn't mind if they bring in Tobey Maguire, since it would be a nice passing the torch to Tom Holland, who's the current actor for Spider-Man. So I think that would be pretty awesome. And Tom Holland himself did also say that he wanted Tobey Maguire to play Uncle Ben. But if it's not going to be Tobey Maguire, then I wouldn't mind someone like Tom Hanks, or even Steve Carell, who I think could potentially make a great Uncle Ben. So if MCU Spider-Man 3 was going to have anything to do with Uncle Ben, it's very possible that Doctor Strange could temporarily bring back Uncle Ben for Peter Parker to talk to, like towards the end of the film or sometime after the climax, which I think would be perfect. I think it would be less likely for a flashback to happen, but I think the most likely one is a mention. Just a name drop for Ben would be perfect. A lot of people have been asking for that for years now, so I think it should be about time that the man should be mentioned in the next film. Possibly May mentioning Uncle Ben, because to remember the man he was before he died, or possibly even Peter Parker not only visiting his grave but also talking to him as well, which also would be a very hot fun moment in the film if it does happen. But yeah, this is how I think Uncle Ben may finally get mentioned in the MCU, as the film might take place around the same period he died in, only a few years in the future. However, what about you guys? If MCU Spider-Man 3 was going to have anything to do with Uncle Ben, do you think he will appear in a flashback, or do you think we'll just get a mention of Ben in the film? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, please like, and want more, subscribe. To begin, Protocol 36.